Good evening, guys. This is Abraham's Pathfinder TV, instructor at the Pathfinder School. I am going to start a 4-part series, or approximately, I'm estimating a 4-part series on a complete restoration of an axe. Because first off, I haven't seen this on Pathfinder TV, so I think it'll be good for the viewers, because it's a really valuable skill in my opinion. And I really just recently got into it from watching all the posts or looking at all the posts on Facebook. It really got me entertaining the idea of doing one myself. Therefore, I went out and the first one I did, and I'm going to show you guys a couple examples. I messed up 2 or 3 times because I thought I was going to walk into this and be able to do it the first try, but that's not the way it is. So I want you guys to go out there, and once I get done with this video, I may make it look a little easy, but trust me guys, there's a lot of different variables you have to consider when you're doing this. So I want to talk about what these 4 parts in this series are going to entail. The first part, I'm going to talk about what you're looking for in the handle, some tools that you may need to use throughout this process, and again, there's many different options to do this. The axe head that I'm using, which is a plumb, that's an old vintage head, and that's the good thing about this, because when you go out to yard sales, garage sales, estate sales, places like that, you're going to find this stuff on the cheap. And this one in particular is not rusted to heck, but sometimes you may find it is really rusted, but what's hiding under that rust could be a very, very good name and brands. So if it's rusty, don't be discouraged not to go grab it. Still grab it a couple bucks for that head. It could be worth a lot more than that, and it could be an heirloom quality piece that stays in the family. So let's talk about some materials that you're going to need for this process. And actually, before I get started, I want to tell you guys that by no means am I an expert. So what I say is not going to be, the right way to do it, but this is a way I found that works best for me. I've had a lot of help on Facebook. I'm just watching posts, watching different videos on YouTube, places like that. Excuse me. And this is what I found works best for me. I've hung a couple, and again, I'll show you guys what they look like. I've hung approximately 3, but I probably double that 6 to 7 times. I went through the process because I messed up quite a few times. But this is what I found out works for me the best. It may not work for you. You may have to, change things up a little bit to supplement what works for you. But this is what works for me. And every time I've done it this way, it seems to work. I get a nice tight fit and a nice clean finish. So the first video, I'm just going to discuss about the tools and everything. This exact head, I'll tell you guys a little bit about it. What you're looking for in a handle. The second video of the series, I will show you guys how to clean this up. In this case, this head, and a lot of the times you're going to find it's kind of mushroomed over, split over, rolled over, because people decide to use this as a wedge, like beat it with a maul, a splitting maul, and that's not what these are used for. You don't use metal on metal or steel on steel. You just don't beat on tools like that. So I'll clean that up real nice. I'm going to put an edge on it, and that will wrap up the second video. And actually, I will put a nice edge, a nice keen edge on this too, on the second video. And that will be all wrapped up. So everything with discussing from the handles, what you're looking for in a handle, and anything with materials you're going to use will be in the first video. The second video is going to be about the axe head, cleaning it up, getting it all shaped up properly, squared away if that's what you want, and putting a nice keen edge on it. The third video will be attaching the head to your handle, so hanging or hafting the axe head to the handle. And then the fourth video will be the fit and finish. So after I have everything done, applying boiled linseed oil, whatever mineral oil, whatever you want to use, applying it and cleaning it up and getting a nice fit and finish on there. And once you get that, this will be ready for whoever I'm giving it to. I'm actually making this for a Christmas present for somebody, so I think they'll like it a lot. And then I may throw a 5th video in there, and I've got quite a few of these I'm making for Christmas presents. So I would do maybe how to make a leather sheath for one of them, and you would just do that process to whatever axes you have. So it may be a 5-part series. I'm hoping you guys will enjoy it. So make sure you watch this video and stay tuned for the other 4 parts if I decide to do the leather sheath. And we will get started. Of which that I completed was, I'll bring it over to you guys. And I showed this on one of my videos. I believe it is a true temper. I'm not sure of the axe head exactly, but I'll take this improvised duct tape, Gorilla Tape sheath off. Another reason for carrying duct tape in your kit, or Gorilla Tape. Pull that sheath off, and I've got a nice edge on that bad boy. I do apologize if you guys can't see it, but this method, I've hung this one and it's nice and clean finished. About 3/16 of an inch of excess on the top. That's usually what like Grand's First Brooks and Wetterlings have, so that's what I went off of. Put this away. This thing is very sharp. And this is a 28-inch handle. I like it a lot. And I just did that measurement device on the back with that axe. That's the one I did it on. The next one that I completed is a plumb. I'm not sure. I think it's just a nice splitting axe, or felling axe, excuse me. It does not have any model on it, but it just says Plumb. Plumb's a very good brand. And again, I got a really good edge on that one too. Very nice. Nice clean finish on that one. And this has got a 36-inch handle. And I've burnt some measurements on the back of that one just to see how I liked it. In all honesty, guys, I think I like the burnt measurements better than the putty, just because you don't have to have the putty. So it makes it better there. And then the next one you guys are going to see, I just finished this one up last night. This does not have a maker's mark on it, but it turned out very nice. And when you start to file this stuff, file these axe heads, you're going to know if it's quality steel or not. And this one sure seemed like some quality stuff. It's got a nice edge on that one too. And this is all with that rooster scary sharp method. It's crazy. It's a very good method Craig Roost came up with. I really do like it. And it's got a nice hang on that one too. Hafted that one real nice. Turned out good. But you guys, what you don't see and a lot of people don't show is how many times it actually took me to get these axes to look like this. It's just not hang it your first time most likely and turn out great. It could be that way, but it's not guaranteed. I'm going to tell you up front, between those 3 axes, I've probably went through 6 handles. So probably 3 extra or excess handles that I didn't need, I went through just to get those to work. So I wanted to put that out there so you guys don't think it's going to be perfect your first time, because typically it's not. Put these to the side. They all need nice sheaths to them, and they'll turn out good. So I wanted to show you guys what those look like. Now we're going to go into more depth on the head I have, and then what you're looking for in the handle and the reasonings behind it. Go ahead and talk materials, which you're going to need for this project. And again, this is going to vary on how you do this project or how you go about this process. For what I use, or for what I do, and the materials that I use are going to be for the axe head. If I wanted to get the rust off, and it's the best way that I've found, unless you want to use, you can use electricity, things like that. I think it's called an electrolysis tank or something like that to get the rust off. So you can use electrolysis if you want to do that. But what I like to do is just soak it in distilled white vinegar, put it down in there, and the rust will just fall off. Once you pull it out, let it in there for 24 hours, take it out, and then spray it off, and the rust will fall off that way. That's the best way to do it. But in this case, with this axe head, it's not in bad shape at all. Therefore, I won't have to go through that process. But if you're going to do that, I would recommend getting some white vinegar and just soaking your axe head in there, taking it out, and then spraying it to get the rust off. Once you do that, you can get a nice finish, and depending if you want the patina left on there or if you want to get a nice mirror polish, which is going to take a lot of work, especially if your axe head is all pitted up. This one is not. This one's a really nice axe head. It's in really good shape. But if you did want to get that mirror polish, you can go get what's called a flapper wheel. It's pretty much just a wheel. It's called flap wheel. This is a 1-inch 60 grit. It's just sandpaper in a wheel format. And you spin it across there, and it will start to remove that material, getting that shiny look to it. You would just go 660, 120, whatever the grits are. You could just move up and then slowly move up into the buffing wheel, if that's what you want to do. But typically what I like to do, and I actually got something new, I'll grab it out of here real quick if I can remember where I put it. But basically it's going to be honest, I don't know where I put it right now, but it's a wire wheel that attaches to a buffing wheel or a grinder, bench grinder, so I can attach it to that. And this one in particular is for a drill, but it's just a wire wheel, and you would take it across there to get a nice finish, a consistent, nice look to it. But I'm going to actually try that and see if it attaches, the actual wire wheel attaches to the bench grinder over there. It'll be a lot quicker, and I can hold this in my hands, so it'll work better that way. To get the mushrooming off, you could use a file. And I know a lot of people are not going to agree with this. Using power tools, you do run the risk of screwing the temper up. But if you soak it in water and keep it nice and cool, make sure you don't get in the water every once in a while, you should not have a problem with that. So that's probably where people are going to disagree. But from what I've been doing, it's working fine. It's not screwing the temper up. Just don't let it get hot enough to where it's going to screw the temper up. I usually use a belt sander. You can use that to get the mushrooming off, or I would not go to the extent of using the actual grinding wheel. I think that's a little too aggressive. So I would definitely go with a belt sander, and it's a lot easier that way. You're not going to get it as hot and removing as much material. If this was a lot worse than what it is, I may go to that bench grinder, just depends. But in my case, I would use a belt sander. So that pretty much cleans this up, and then to put the edge on there, I would just use a mill bastard file. That is the medium. The mill bastard file is the medium, so that's what I would use. That's what I use, actually. And if you want to get really excessive with it, you could go to the fine file, but I don't do that because I usually do the Rooster Crazy Sharp method. That's from Craig Roost. He's the owner of the group Axe Junkies on Facebook. It's a really good group. I learned a lot from there, and that's where I've learned this method on a video that he has on Axe Junkies YouTube channel. You just take a drywall sander. That's what this is here. Then you get some sandpaper that's different grits. I've got 100 in my drawer over there, but I've been using 220. If it's real bad. After I do the with the file, it's got scratches in it. If you want to polish on there, I would go from 220. Then get all the scratches out of it. Then I have 400. This is wet and dry sandpaper. Wet, dry sandpaper, so you can use it wet and dry. And then I have 800. Then I would probably go up to 2,000 if you want to get crazy with it. But what this allows you to do is this little drywall sander or drywall pad. It's got foam to it. So with these axes, you want a convex edge to them, so it conforms to that, and it puts a nice edge on there. So that's what I use there, and I may be going into too much depth right now, but if you guys are confused, I will show you throughout the process exactly what I'm doing. So that wraps up what I'm using with this. With all the tools I'll be using, and if I want to use a leather strop or a buffing wheel over there, that's the advantage of having tools in a shop situation like this. But to clean this up, all I like to use is a wood rasp. So when I put this axe head on, pound it on, see where I need to remove the material, I will use a wood rasp to remove the majority of it, and then to clean it up with sandpaper, and I'd be good to go. I use a rubber mallet to beat the head on. So that closes up or wraps up what I use in materials for hafting or hanging an axe head. Let's go ahead and talk about handles. There's a lot of controversy with the handles, and a lot of people don't like to find the perfect ones, and that's understandably so. But when I go to get these handles and put them on there, if I'm going to do quality work, I like to have a quality handle. And I don't mean go pay 80 bucks online for a handle just because it's from a specific area, but I would definitely go into an area with good American hickory or ash handles. Those are very good handles. I like to use American hickory because it's a very good wood and very tough and hard, so it's a good wood to use. This handle in front of you is from Missouri. The company is househandles.com. I got pointed into this direction by a buddy on Facebook, and they have not let me down at all, other than a couple measurement issues or dimensions on the top were not proper to what they advertised on their site, but you get that sometimes. This is a 28-inch handle, is what I'm going to use on this plum. You can go to a hardware store like Home Depot, Lowe's, Ace Hardware, places like that, and get handles, but you need to look for a couple of things. And the hardest thing, or the weirdest thing I don't like, or the most annoying in my opinion, is the shellac or varnish they put on their handles. Like when you go to the big department stores or big hardware stores like Home Depot and Lowe's, places like that, you're always going to get varnish on them. And that really sucks. The reason is because when they ship them, in shipment and places like that, they don't want them to get chipped up and damaged, so they put that real thick shellac or varnish on there, and it sucks, and you have to deal with sanding it off. But when I bought this online, when you go to put this in your cart, you have a couple selection options you can do. One is without varnish. You can select that, and it's like 80 cents extra for no varnish on there. And during shipment, it turned out great, and you don't have to worry about taking it off or stripping it off. And then the second option is hand selected. What that means is when they hand select them, or when they ship them out, they make sure all of these important things I'm going to point out to you guys are hand selected, and they make sure they're dead on perfect. So let's go ahead and talk about the things you're looking for in a good axe handle. The first thing is the grain orientation. You want the grain to be running, let's say we're looking at it like this, okay? So the axe head is like this. You want the grain to run from the bottom to the top. You don't want it to go diagonal if you can help it, or you don't want it to go completely horizontal. You want it to run vertical, straight up and down. And on this handle, I do apologize about the lighting. I'm not sure if you guys can see it, but this one, I mean, it's slightly going to the left, but for the most part, it's going vertical. And the reasoning for that is when I'm going to strike with this tool, the force that you're exerting, you want it to run up and down opposed to side to side. So when I'm swinging the striking tool and it hits, if it's up and down, that grain's going to go with the movement. But if it's side to side, all that force could be thrown everywhere, and that's when your handle splits out. So that's very important. That's probably one of the most important things is your grain orientation. The next is the saw curve. A lot of the times when you go to hardware stores, they don't care about this. They'll cut them and they're offset. They're like sideways. You gotta make sure that's nice and even, nice and dimensional when they cut that. And sometimes you're gonna find their saw curve is lower on one side or deeper on one side than on the other, and it's not even. So if it's not even, make sure you square it up. This one is pretty good. Actually really good because this is from House Handles, hand selected. That's why I got it. So that's really nice. And then you're looking for whatever size you want. In this case, this is 28 inch. And it just all depends. And if you're going to go buy one at a hardware store, I would definitely either measure this before you go into the store, and then take a measuring tape in so you can measure the eye size, because you want that eye to fit on there real nice and tight. Or just take the axe head in and measure it that way. But if you order it online and the company, their dimensions on their site are what they say they are, you should have no problem. Order what you need, make sure you measure this, put it on there, and you'll be good to go. So in this case, we'll look at this axe head. I'll measure this. I've already measured this, but in length, this one is 2 and 5/16 is what the length on this is. And then you go to measure, that's the length on that. You measure the top here, and this is the same, 2 and 5/16, so it's a little bit under that. So that's fine. That's good to go. Because if it's under it a little bit, or the axe head, the eye size is a little bit under it, I can jam this in there and make it a lot tighter. But if this is smaller than this, I'm going to have a lot of room in there and a lot of wobble, and you don't want that because that's just going to give it that much more movement for it to break apart. And another thing is, we'll talk about the handle. I forgot to mention this, but you don't want to see any of the heartwood in this handle. You want it to be all sapwood. You don't want it to be any heartwood. I mean, a little piece down here, a little piece of the heartwood's okay, but the majority of this handle, you want it to be sapwood. So I'll get this out there. I like to have a nice curvature to this handle. I like that very much so. And that's pretty much what you're looking for in a handle. I will pull out what they sent with me for their wedges. And they're kind of hit and miss with their wedges. They're kind of disappointing sometimes, but that's what you get. You want to make sure this wedge fits that eye. And I'll go into more depth on this, and this fits perfect. But that's good. But sometimes what they do is, see, that's not cut perfectly straight across. It's kind of whacked up a little bit. It's not nice and even across, but that's alright. And then they sent me one, I'll bring it out here, which is not what you want really. That's all chipped up, and I got it sent like that. You don't want that. Nice thin taper to it, and a lot of the times you're going to come across, especially the ones you buy in hardware stores, for some reason when they make their wedges, they make them really fat at the top and they taper real quick. So once you try to beat it on there, you got that real fat portion. It's hard to get it down at all. With these, what I like about them, it's a nice even taper to them, opposed to having a nice fat portion and then taper down real quick. Because if it's fat and tapers down real quick, it's going to be hard to beat it on there. This is a nice, even, swift taper to it. So that's what you want. And then we'll talk about another thing, which is metal wedges. What I've learned, and most of the times when I've screwed these handles up, it's because of the wedge choice that I've used. These bigger wedges, when I put them in, the bigger they are, the more chance you have of it splitting out and making you very upset. Just because all that work you put into it and it just splits out. So I would suggest you use, if you use metal wedges or metal step wedges or steel step wedges, use smaller ones. If you gotta use two of them, use two small ones opposed to one big one. It's just a lot easier that way, less chance for it to snap out. And it seems to work a lot better that way. Just go out, try it yourself, and see what works for you. But my definite tip would be using smaller wedges. This is a large one they send with them. I went to Menards and I bought these are little wedges, wooden wedges for hammers, but they came with small wedges. So that's what I opted to go with. And if I have to, I'll just use two of those opposed to one big one. So that wraps up what you're looking for in a handle. Try to get it without varnish, but anytime you go to a hardware store, you're going to get it with varnish. Couple companies you can go to online. I think one is Tennessee Hickory Handles. I think that's one if you search American Hickory axe handles, that's what you're going to come across. And then there's House Handles, which is what I got this one from. And then I think it's BeaverToothHandles.com. I think that's another one, Beaver something handles. But House Handles is what I use, and every time I've got one, their shipping is very quick and their quality is spot on. A little bit about this axe head that I have here. One of my buddies, Clayton Steele, he sent me a whole box of these old axe heads, vintage axe heads, just because he goes to a lot of estate sales and places like that, so he's got access to them more than I do, so thank you very much, man, I appreciate it. But this one in particular is a plum. I'm not sure if you guys know what this pattern is, but it's got a nice, like, looks like a bubble kind of form to it, but it doesn't look like it was modified at all. It looks like this was just the way it is. It's got minimum chipping to it. It's going to be real easy to clean up, and it's going to look real nice when I'm done with it. It's got like no rusting or pitting to it at all, so it's going to be real nice. Take it to that wire wheel real quick and it's going to clean it up. But it's a plum, and if you guys can help me with the pattern there, I would appreciate it. I want to know for myself what kind of pattern this is. Very little mushrooming over on the sides. Seems like it was treated very well. So it's going to work out great. But other brands you can look for, there's Plum. That's a very good brand. There's Collins, True Temper. Of course, there's like Wetterlings and Gransfors Brooks. And then there's Holtz Brooks. That's another one you can look for. And just brands like that, old brands that are like that but hiding under the rust. You never know. So if it's only a couple bucks and you think it looks like a quality head, buy it, take it home, put it in vinegar, and see what's under it. You never know. There's Craftsman. That's another one if you want to some more brands to look at. But there's all kinds of brands that are out there. Just take it. If you're not sure, just research a little bit and see what you can find out about it. There's also Norland. Norland's a very good axe company. I want to get one myself eventually. But for now, I've got some really nice axe heads, and thank you very much, Clayton, so I appreciate it. And this will be the axe head that we're using throughout this restoration project. If you guys are excited about this axe restoration series coming up, I went ahead and discussed all the materials I will be using in this process. The axe that I'll be using, how to select a hickory axe handle or a proper axe handle. Make sure it's hardwood. You can carve them out yourself. Whatever makes you happy, whatever you want to do. But I showed you guys what you're looking for in an axe handle, materials, and then the axe that I'll be using, and showed you guys some of the other axes I restored recently. Next week we will be cleaning up the axe head, getting it a nice keen edge on it, very sharp, getting that mushrooming taken care of. And then after that, the next week, coming close to Christmas, we will be putting it on the handle, and then there will be fit and finish. And then we may make a nice leather sheath for it. So this has been Abrahm with Pathfinder TV, an instructor at the Pathfinder School. I hope you guys enjoyed this video on the beginnings of an axe restoration. If you guys like this video, give it a thumbs up, share it with your friends. Make sure you tell your friends to subscribe. Check out Pathfinder Learning Center on Facebook. If you have any questions, make sure you take them there. And share this video. Get it out to your friends. And thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you next week. Take care.